Siddur Snippet series is shown as sponsored by the Saka family and by Yelad Avram Foreman for a full Shlema Adasa Rocha Bas Chana Golda. We're on the 18th bracha of the Amida, the bracha of Hoda, the bracha of Modim that culminates Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Na'eh Lehodos. We mentioned the Gemara Megillah tells us that Avoda V'Hoda Chad Milsi, the reason that Hoda follows Avoda, gratitude follows the service of Hashem, is because a form of service, they are synonymous. We serve Hashem by being grateful. And when we're grateful, we're dedicated to the service of Hashem. We left off with the historical background. Shibbolei HaLeket, the great Rishon, has given us the precedent. What happened in Tanakh that led to the Malachim inspiring or authoring that bracha that Anshe Knesset HaGedolah later solidified as the bracha. So we mentioned the whole background. We won't repeat the whole story, but the Midrashim that Shlomo HaMelech, David HaMelech wasn't allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash. Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed, when his son Shlomo HaMelech was allowed, and it was all ready, the Kodesh HaKadoshim did not allow the gates closed. They weren't allowed to begin. Finally, Shlomo invoked the image of David, or alternatively, the Medrash says, Shlomo actually brought in the Aron, the coffin of David HaMelech. He told the gates to open out of respect for the one in the coffin. The gates indeed opened, and when they did, the Medrash Chazal say David stood up from the dead, saw the gates part for him. It was a clear indication that Hashem had forgiven him, which is the forgiveness that he sought, even though he wasn't allowed to build the Beis HaMikdash in his lifetime. It happened through his son Shlomo. And Tehillim, Kapitel Lamed, Pasuk Daled, references this. David HaMelech says, "You preserved me from the grave, you made me come alive," and that is David HaMelech inspired to write those words with this story. So when the gates finally opened, the Malachim who were there observing responded, Atov Shemcha L'chana Elahodos, blessed are you Hashem, your name is good, it's appropriate, it is fitting to say thank you to you. What was it about this episode? Gratitude. Gratitude should be some miracle happened. Gratitude should be that something unexpected happened to one of our great figures of Tanakh, and that their response was to express gratitude, or the Malachim observing what happened to express gratitude. What was it about? The gates closed, the gates wouldn't open, invoking David HaMelech, they only opened then, and once they opened, it wasn't Shlomo who said thank you, it was the Malachim. What's going on here? So Shlomo was incredibly dedicated to building the Beis HaMikdash. And when we reached this step, when he got to this final step, the culmination, the climax of the process, the doors of the Kodesh HaKadoshim slammed in his face. They wouldn't open up. The Medrash Chazal say, why wouldn't they open up? So the Medrash tells us, the Medrash in Bamidbar, it's Medrash Perek Yudalad. The Medrash says that the reason they wouldn't open up is because Shlomo presented, Ki'ilu, he was arrogant, he was haughty. Shlomo HaMelech presented as if, now that he completed, the architect, the builder of the Beis HaMikdash was sanctified, it was Kodesh, even without the Aron in it, even without the holy Luchos, even without the Aseres HaDibros, that since Shlomo himself was holy, and he's the one who built the Beis HaMikdash, it must be holy, even absent the Aseres HaDibros, the word Dibros from Davar, L'daber, the sayings of Hashem. It was holy even without Hashem's word, because he was the one who built it. And the image of the gates slamming shut was Kilu shutting Shlomo out and saying, it's not holy because of you. Who needs the Aseres HaDibros inside if you think it's holy because of you? In your merit it won't open. Arrogance, there's no room, as Chazal say elsewhere, there's no room in this world for Hashem and us if we're going to carry ourselves in an arrogant way. When did the doors open? When did those gates open? Only when David HaMelech was invoked. Why? David spent his whole life wanting to build the Beis HaMikdash, but he wasn't able to. Why? Because of his mistake, his miscalculation. Even though our rabbis say, Kol Omer David Chotei and Elatoa, you're not allowed to say that David was a sinner, so we're not saying it. Who said it? David. In Tehillim, Chatasi Lashem. We're not supposed to say it, because there is, if we were his defense attorney, there is a defense, which is persuasive, which would carry the day, about why Uriah was liable, he was married by Malchus, it was a get lemafra, all of the argument why. We shouldn't ascribe guilt to David HaMelech, but he himself described himself as guilty, Chatasi Lashem, and he wanted to earn forgiveness for that mistake with Bathsheba. And David's heartbreak, David's sincerity, David being authentically remorseful and regretful over that mistake, and losing the opportunity to personally build the Beis HaMikdash, the residence for the Shekhinah, that was compelling. That moved Kiviyachal Hashem to be willing to open it. And when Hashem opened the gates, it was an affirmation, a validation It was an acceptance of David's heartfelt pleas, his yearning to be forgiving. And when the Malachim observed that, Hatov Shimcha Ulachana Ed Lahodos. Hashem is so kind and so good. He gives not only in the physical material world, He grants forgiveness. He grants a second chance. He grants a new opportunity. He grants the opportunity for closure. And the fact that David HaMelech was able to put it behind him. And so it was that episode that they observed and they responded, Hatov Shimcha Hashem, your name is great. Ulachana Ed, so pleasant. Lahodos, lahodos. But that's also a little hint. Because the word lahodos has a second meaning. We'll pick up with this next time. We know it's a brilliant Rav Hutner. We've quoted this Rav Hutner many times. Modeh le and modeh al. The same word, hoda'ah, to be modeh, has two meanings. But long before Rav Hutner, the Maharsha made a similar comment, and others. We'll start with it next time. The Maharsha says, Modim is from the language not only of gratitude, but of vidui, of an admission. And now we can understand the connection between Modim, this admission of David HaMelech, and this plea for forgiveness, and gratitude and admission. Why is it that they mean the same thing? We'll pick up with it next time.